The production function, John's inputs and outputs. Welcome to section 3. Now that we have mastered the external forces of supply and demand, it is time to look inside the business engine. To understand corporate finance and the strategy behind an Ivy League level enterprise, we must look at how a company actually creates value. In this section, John is moving his keyboard business out of the hobbyist phase and into a serious production mindset. To succeed, he needs to understand the relationship between what he puts into his business, his inputs, and what he gets out, his output. In economics, this relationship is called the production function. According to N. Gregory Mankiw, the production function is the relationship between the quantity of inputs used to make a good and the quantity of output of that good. For John, this is the fundamental blueprint of his workshop. Let's look at John's garage. His primary inputs are the components of the keyboards, switches, PCBs, and cases, and the labor required to put them together. To keep things simple, let's focus on the most flexible input, labor. Initially, John works alone. He can produce a certain number of keyboards per week. But as demand grows, John decides to hire some of his friends to help. The production function tells us exactly how many keyboards will be produced as John adds more workers. If one worker produces 10 keyboards and 2 workers produce 22, the production function is showing us the direct physical result of John's hiring decisions. In the world of finance, this isn't just a math problem, it's a capacity problem. John needs to know exactly how much engine power his business has before he can promise deliveries to big retail clients. This leads us to a critical concept in marginal analysis, the marginal product. The marginal product of any input in the production process is the increase in the quantity of output obtained from an additional unit of that input. When John hires his first assistant, his production jumps from 10 to 22. That means the marginal product of that second worker is 12 keyboards. Perhaps they worked well together, specializing in different tasks, one soldering while the other assembles the cases. However, as John continues to hire more people, a famous economic law begins to take effect, the diminishing marginal product. Mankiw defines this as the property whereby the marginal product of an input declines as the quantity of the input increases. Imagine John hires a third, fourth, and fifth worker, but they're all still working in his small garage with only 2 soldering stations and limited desk space. Eventually, the workers start getting in each other's way. They have to wait in line to use the tools. The fifth worker might only add 2 extra keyboards to the weekly total, whereas the first assistant added 12. The marginal product is shrinking. This is a vital lesson for John's corporate strategy. More workers do not always mean a proportional increase in success. If John keeps hiring without expanding his space or buying more equipment, he is essentially paying for labor that isn't producing much. In finance, this is known as operational inefficiency, and it can quickly drain a company's cash reserves. To see this clearly, we look at the total cost curve. As the production function gets flatter due to diminishing marginal product, the total cost curve gets steeper. This happens because if each additional worker is producing less and less output, it becomes increasingly expensive to produce each additional keyboard. John is paying the same wage to the fifth worker as he is to the first, but he's getting much less output in return. This relationship between the physical reality of production and the financial reality of cost is the heartbeat of a business. When John looks at a giant corporation like Apple or Tesla, he isn't just looking at their products. He is looking at their production functions. Are they using their inputs efficiently? Have they reached a point where adding more resources actually slows them down? For John, mastering the production function is about finding the balance. He needs to know when to hire, when to stop hiring, and when it's time to invest in a larger factory. By understanding that every input has a marginal impact, he can make smarter decisions about how to scale his business. He learns that growth isn't just about doing more. It's about doing more effectively. In our next lesson, we will translate these physical inputs into dollars and cents as we analyze fixed and variable costs. But for now, remember the lesson of the garage. Space and tools are limited, and every new hire must be weighed against the actual output they bring to the table. This is the first step in building a business engine that doesn't just run, but thrives.